Okay, we're picking back up where number 16 left off from the first day. 17 says when adding 1.43 and 1.2 or plus 1.2, the solution contains how many significant digits? Well, you have 1.43 and you have 1.2. In the first one, you have three significant digits or three significant figures. Remember, you count every number that's not zero. In the second one, you have two. You always go with the one that has the fewest amount, or the fewer in this case. There's only two of them for 1.2, so that's the one you're going to go with, 2, B. 18 says, what graph shows a line that has a slope of -1 and a y-intercept of 0, 1? First thing you look at is the slope of -1. Remember, slope of -1 means it's counting down. Think of a ramp as if you're walking along a road and a ramp would go down. So it's got to be negative for sure. It's got to go downhill. So this one's out because it goes uphill. So is this one. So you only got to look at A or D. The other part says the y-intercept is 0, 1. Normally when we look at y-intercepts, we just look at one value. We don't look at it as an ordered pair like 0, 1. But remember, this is your x value and this is your y value. So that means your y-intercept will be at 1. So you're just picking between A and D, which one goes through the y-axis. Remember, this one's your y-axis because it looks like a capital Y. This one goes through at the value 1, or you can say that that is 0, 1 if you want to look at that and name the point. This one down here goes through at -1, so we're going to go with A for this one. 19 says a neighborhood surveyed the times of day people water their lawns and tallied the data below. And then you can see all different intervals of time, 4-hour intervals or 3-hour and 59-minute intervals. It says if you wanted to find which was the most popular time of day to water, you would find which of these measures of central tendency. Most popular means the one that occurs the most. If it's the most popular, that means the most people do it, the most people show up. In this case, the most people water their lawns. Every time you see something that looks like this is the old jail style of counting how many days you got left in your sentence. You do 4 little tally marks and then you put 1 through it. That means 5. So anytime you see that, that means 5. So real quickly you can look at this. That means 5 plus 1, because it has 5 and then it has the single one, which means 6. This is the only one here that has 2 complete 5s. That means that's the only one that has 10, which means that's the one that shows up the most when you find in the mode. Answers mode, but which part of it would be from 4 p.m. to 8 or from 7:59 p.m. 20 says Todd graphed his income according to hours he worked. You look at the bottom. It goes from 10 hours through 70 hours. I know this picture might have been a little tough for you to see exactly how the graph looked up on the board. It says which statement supports the graph. You can see up through 50 hours, you can see it goes up $100 for every 10 hours worked up through 50 hours. See, it goes up 10 hours is 100, then 200, 3, 4, 3, 4, then 500 up to 50 hours. But then something happens after 50 hours. From 50 to 60 hours, it goes up plus 200. And then from 60 to 70, again, it looks kind of steep up here, but it's up plus 200. So it goes up twice as much compared to the plus 100 that all the rest of them were. So it says Todd earns double pay after 50 hours. Let's look back at that one in a second. B says Todd always earns $20 an hour. That's not true because he earns $10 an hour up through 50 hours. So that one's not good. Todd's pay is always the same. No, up to 50 hours it's the same, but then it changes. D says Todd never worked more than 60 hours. No, you can see that he worked 70 hours at least one time. So the first one says Todd earns double pay after 50 hours. It goes from plus $100 for 10 hours or $10 an hour to up to $20 an hour plus $200. 21 says, what's the x-intercept of 3x plus 4y equals 12? Normally we deal with y-intercepts, but we learned how to do the x-intercept a long time ago. Remember, if you're looking for an intercept, you plug in 0 of the other number. So since we're looking for the x-intercept, you're going to plug in 0 in place of y. So all we're doing is in place of y, we're plugging in 0. So 4 times 0, leave everything else the same. 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 12. 4 times 0 is 0. So we have 3x plus 0 equals 12. Then solve the equation like regular. 3x plus 0 leaves it at 3x equals 12. Divide by 3 to get x by itself. and x is 4. So your x value is 4. Remember, it's x comma y. Your x value is 4, and your y value we plugged in 0. So the ordered pair, which is the x-intercept, is 4, 0, D. 22 says if point A is negative 3, 4, and it's reflected over the x-axis, what are its new coordinates? This is another thing that we did not go over during this year, because reflection is a very simple concept, something that we can just explain right now. Everybody understands that when something's reflected in a mirror, it looks, if you look at yourself in the mirror, everything looks backwards. So if you plot the point, this is the easiest way to do this, at negative 1, 2, 3, positive 1, 2, 3, 4. If you plot that first point there at negative 3, 4, it says it's reflected over the x-axis. That's the key. This one's the x-axis. It's reflected over that one. That means that that number is going to stay as negative 3. It's going to stay as negative 3. It's reflected. It's going to be on this side. It's going to stay as negative 3, but it's going to go down 4. So instead of being negative 3, positive 4, negative 3, negative 4. The only thing that changes, again, it's reflected over the x-axis. The x value stays the same. The y value changes from positive to negative. So negative 3, negative 4. Again, D. 23 says, which of the following accurately describes the relationship in the graph below? You can clearly see that all the data is roughly grouped together. It's not crazy. It's not like you have a graph that looks like this and you just got data all over the place. It's not like that. They're roughly grouped together. They're somewhat in a straight line, even though they're not perfectly in a straight line. And it is going downhill. It's going downhill. We know downhill means it's a negative slope. So that's a negative relationship. 24 says, what's the height of an average woman? 4 weeks is not a height measurement for sure. You can take that one away. That's the one that doesn't make any sense at all. So you have to choose between 5.5 feet, 1 yard, and 2 yards. Remember, a yard is roughly 3 feet. Think of it as 3 feet, because most of us understand what 3 feet is. So that's 3 feet. So if this one's 2 yards, this one will be roughly 6 feet. Think of the average women that you know is, now there are plenty of women that are 6 feet tall, but that's not an average. I said roughly 3 feet. I was thinking that said meters for a second. Exactly 3 feet, exactly 6 feet. But most women are not quite 6 feet tall, so 5.5 feet would be your best measurement. 25 says, what is the equation of the line that includes the point 4, negative 3, and has a slope of negative 2? Well, you know the slope's value is negative 2. So right away, if you look at these y equals mx plus b, this one doesn't even have a negative slope of 2. So you can take that one away right away. So we have to choose between a, b, and c. Now, this doesn't tell us our y-intercept value. It gives us a value of x, and it gives us a value of y. So in place of y equals mx plus b, we're going to find what our b value is. In place of y, we know it's negative 3, equals, we know that our slope value is negative 2. In place of x, we know our value is 4, and then we don't know what the y-intercept or the b value is. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. So we have negative 3 equals negative 8 plus b. Get rid of negative 8 plus b. Remember, the negative tells you it means minus. So add 8 to undo it. Add 8 to this side, and it leaves you with 5 equals b. So your b value is 5, and we knew from earlier that our m value is negative 2. So y equals mx plus b. Y equals negative 2x positive 5, or plus 5. Negative 2x plus 5. Then this is the part 2 of our EOC practice. When we actually take the real EOC test next week, there'll be parts that you can use a calculator on and parts that you can't. We actually weren't supposed to use a calculator for the first part, but I don't think there was a whole lot of stuff that actually even required a calculator. We'll tighten down on that a little bit more when we actually take our official practice test at the end of this week. Number one says the graph shows the price of an entry ticket into the big adventure park for one day. It says with one adult and X number of children. Which equation best represents the graph? You don't have to do a lot of figuring on this one. The two at the bottom, y equals 75x and y equals 45x, plus 0. There is no y-intercept for any one of those. You can see that the line does not start at 0, so both of those are out. So you have to determine, is this one A or is this one B? You know y equals mx plus b is your y-intercept value, so you have to choose which one start. Does it start at 45 or does it start at 75? You can clearly see it starts right between 150, so that's plus 75. Y equals mx plus b. All you have to do is check the b value plus 75. Then there's a great big long one we had to copy down, but you'll remember this one if you copied it all down because it was so long. It says a local bookstore is encouraging its customers to drop off used books to be given to schools, libraries, and other community organizations. They're offering anyone who drops off books a special hardcover edition of Oliver Twist for $25.95, minus 10 cents for each used book. This is 10 cents in case anybody's not sure that that's what that means. It says the cost of this special edition can be expressed as G of U, that's how you read that, equals $25.95 minus 10 cents times U. What does the slope of the equation describe? So it says, what is this slope? Y equals mx plus b. Notice this is not in mx plus b form. It says b plus mx basically. So if you, and I know that's backwards from what we normally say, but this is your m value right here, the thing that's multiplying by u, or in this case, u is represented, means x. A says for every 10 cents given, one book is donated to a school. No, that's not it. It says, B says for every book donated, the price of Oliver Twist is decreased by 10 cents. That's the one, because it says minus 10 cents times U is the amount of books given. Number 3 says 3 boxes have a total weight of 640 pounds. Box A weighs twice as much as box B. Box C weighs 30 pounds more than box A. How much does each one weigh? Okay, so A equals 2 times B. That's what the first one says. Box A weighs twice as much as B. The second part says box C weighs 30 more than A. So box C equals 30 more than A. So if we know that our total amount, the total, all of them together, total equals A plus B plus C, then we'll just plug in what we already know. We have, for both of these, we know that they both share A. So that means we want to keep them all, we want to make them all represented by A. So this first equation says T equals A, or our total equals, or we know our value of our total, my fault. We know our value of our total is 640. So 640 equals A is what we want to keep, plus our value for B is going to have to be represented here. We know we can make this one into A because we have A equals 2 times B. Get rid of 2 times something by dividing by 2. So now this cancels and it says B equals A over 2. So in place of B, we can plug in A divided by 2. You can do the same thing with C. C equals 30 plus A. In order to, we already have the value of C. It says C equals 30 plus A. So in place of C, we can plug in 30 plus A. Again, all we did was substitute it, but we went from having 3 different variables, A, B, and C, to now we only have one type of variable. Get rid of get rid of A divided by 2 by multiplying by 2. If you multiply that term by 2, you got to multiply every term by 2. In the equation, 2 times 640 is 1280. 2 times A is 2A. These will cancel out and just leave you with A, so plus A. 2 times 30 is plus 60, and 2 times A again is plus 2A one more time. So when you put all your A's together, 2A plus A is 3A, plus 2 more A is 5A, plus 60 equals 1280. Get rid of plus 60 by subtracting it. So you have 1220 equals 5a. And then get rid of 5 times a by dividing by 5. 5 goes into 12 two times. There's 3 left over. It goes into 32 6 times. And there's 2 left over, and it goes into 24 times. So 264 equals A. So box A is 200, and I made a mistake. Must be 44. My math at the very end made a mistake. 1220 divided by 5 must be 244. Yeah, that's what it is. 244 equals A, not 264. So if you look at all of these, the first one, it says A's box is 200. This one's 240. This one's 230. You can get to B quickly, 244. You can plug in all the rest of the values to solve it. We'll go to the next one quick as we can. 4 says a computer program simulated tossing 3 coins 500 times. Number 4 says a computer program simulated tossing coins 500 times. The results are in the table. It says based on the computer simulation, what is the experimental probability? Now this experimental means what happens when you actually perform the experiment. Because if you flip a coin, like if you just flip one coin, 1 out of 2 is going to be heads. So if you flip it 10 times, basically, out of 10, you should have 5 heads and 5 tails. That's the theoretical probability. That's what it's going to become eventually. But when you experimental, you might, instead of having 5 heads out of 10, you might only have 3 heads based on that experiment. So experimental probability is what actually happened when you ran the experiment. So this computer simulated the experiment 500 times. Says what's the experimental probability of tossing 2 heads and a tail? But notice it doesn't say what order 2 heads and a tail is. It doesn't have to be head, head, then tail. So you're actually going to use a few different ones. We're going to use this one. This one has heads, heads, and tail. This one has heads, heads, and tail. And that's it. Notice that's the only 3 that have 2 heads and 1 tails in them. So when you add all of those numbers up, you're going to get, adding all of these up, you get the number 202. Now, it went out of 500 times. Anytime you're talking about probability, it's the favorable outcome. This was our favorable outcome. That means 2 heads and a tail over your total. Probability is always favorable over total. So 202 out of 500. The number 2 goes into both of those. It goes into 202 101 times, and it goes into 500 250 times. So 101 out of 250, D for that one. Again, probability favorable over total. When we look at number 5, though, it says what the probability Kyle wins a spelling bee is 1 out of 5. What are the odds? Now, the probability is 1 out of 5. That means favorable over total. So what that's saying is Kyle wins is the favorable outcome. That means there are 5 people, or there are 5 things that prevent total of Kyle winning. 1 of them being Kyle winning and 4 of them being not Kyle winning. So the easiest way to understand this is to say there are 5 people in the competition. 1 of them's Kyle and there are 4 other ones. So it's the favorable out of the total. The odds, however, odds are not favorable out of total. Odds are favorable, just like the other one, out of unfavorable. Okay? So favorable out of unfavorable. So if the probability of Kyle winning was 1 out of 5, then his favorable outcome of him winning is still 1, but the unfavorable outcome is 4 because there are 4 other people in the competition. Again, this is favorable, he wins. This is unfavorable, he does not win. So favorable over unfavorable. 1 over 4 is the same thing as 1 to 4. B. Again, that's the difference between probability and odds. Probability, favorable over total. Odds, favorable over unfavorable. The event or the outcome that you don't want to happen.